You wake up exhausted, not because you worked too hard, but because your mind was looted while you slept. You aren't lazy, and you aren't useless. You are simply living in a world meticulously engineered to hijack your neurochemistry. There is a silent heist happening inside your skull. Every notification, every 5-second loop, every sensational headline is a digital pickpocket stealing your focus. We call it entertainment, but your brain experiences it as trash, a mounting pile of invisible debris that fills the space where your dreams used to live. You open your phone for a 5-minute break, and an hour vanishes. You know you should work, but your brain is screaming for one more hit of cheap novelty. This isn't a character flaw. It is the physiological consequence of a brain saturated with dopamine. Dopamine was once the reward for the hunt, the struggle, and the breakthrough. It was the fuel for human evolution. Today, it's handed out for free through glass screens and processed sugar. When the reward comes without the effort, the drive to achieve begins to die. Cleaning the trash out of your brain isn't about living a life of suffering. It's about reclaiming your sovereignty. It's about putting dopamine back where it belongs so that discipline feels possible and life feels meaningful again. The human brain was never designed for the modern world. Evolution built us for survival, not for processing 10,000 stimuli every hour. Every time you scroll, every time you check a like, a small burst of dopamine is released. At first, it feels like alertness. But over time, the system numbs. Like a room that hasn't been cleaned in years, the clutter eventually reaches the ceiling, and you can no longer breathe. As Stanford neuroscientist Andrew Huberman explains, dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure. It is the molecule of motivation and pursuit. When we abuse it with easy hits, the brain downregulates its sensitivity. This is why you find yourself bored by the things you once loved. This is why deep work feels like a chore. Elon Musk has often said that the ability to focus intensely for long periods is a primary competitive advantage. But deep focus cannot survive in a brain drowning in digital noise. Look at elite athletes like Michael Phelps. During his peak, his life was stripped to the bone: eat, sleep, train, recover. It wasn't that he hated fun. It was that he understood that every source of junk dopamine blunted his mental edge. A polluted brain hates the slow crawl of progress. It demands the instant prize. And that demand is the greatest enemy of long-term success. There is a strange paradox in our era. The more tired we feel, the more we scroll. And the more we scroll, the more exhausted we become. You aren't scrolling because it's fun. You're scrolling to fill a void. You aren't seeking entertainment. You are seeking an emotional bypass to avoid the discomfort of your own thoughts. This is the most dangerous addiction, the addiction to forgetting how tired you are. Cal Newport, the author of Deep Work, argues that social media doesn't just take your time. It destroys your capacity to endure boredom. Yet boredom is the essential gateway to creativity and deep thought. Your brain has developed a dangerous reflex. Discomfort leads to a search for a stimulus. If you're tired, you scroll. If you're stressed, you eat. If you're lonely, you check a feed. The problem isn't the phone. The problem is that your brain has forgotten how to be still. Steve Jobs believed that creativity comes from connecting experiences in moments of quiet. But if every gap in your day is filled with cheap dopamine, there is no room left for original thought. Marathon runners and writers don't avoid the wall of fatigue, they go through it. Junk dopamine teaches you the opposite. That discomfort must be avoided at all costs. But when you avoid discomfort, you avoid growth. This invisible addiction doesn't make you collapse, it just keeps you average. It leaves you with big dreams and zero energy. There is a common mistake when people talk about a dopamine detox. They treat dopamine as a villain to be eliminated. That is a dangerous misunderstanding. Without dopamine, you wouldn't have the will to get out of bed. Dopamine is the fire of desire. The problem is how we are burning the fuel. In the past, dopamine came after the effort. The reward followed the struggle. Today, the reward comes before the action. You pick up your phone the second you open your eyes. Your brain gets its win before you've even brushed your teeth. Why would it ever bother to do the hard work of building a career or a body when it's already been rewarded? According to Andrew Huberman, dopamine operates on a baseline. When you spike it constantly with easy pleasure, that baseline drops. The result, normal activities like learning or working feel gray and heavy. You lose the taste for the long-term goal. You only have an appetite for the short, the fast, and the easy. David Goggins didn't quit dopamine, he trained it. He taught his brain that the reward only comes after the pain of the workout. This is the hallmark of those who master their lives. They delay the reward. They build dopamine through progress, not through consumption. Elon Musk doesn't look for motivation, he builds systems. Motivation is a feeling, a system is a structure. True dopamine detox isn't about banning joy. It's about refusing to reward yourself for doing nothing. Many of us are too hard on ourselves. We say, I lack discipline, or I'm not strong enough. But the truth is, your discipline wasn't lost, it was stolen. Discipline is a neural muscle, and it atrophies when the brain is fed junk food dopamine that requires no effort. When you repeat the lesson that rewards are free, the brain will fight you every time you ask it to do something difficult. Psychologist Roy Baumeister notes that self-control is like a muscle, but it doesn't just get tired, it gets confused. If you promise yourself 30 minutes of reading but check your phone after 5, your brain records a failure of intent. It learns that your word doesn't matter. Jocko Willink famously says, discipline equals freedom, but that freedom only exists when you stop selling your future for a momentary hit. Kobe Bryant didn't spend his mornings seeking fun. He spent them in a cold gym at 4 a.m. He wasn't a martyr. He just preferred the dopamine of being the best over the dopamine of sleeping in. Discipline is reclaimed by setting hard boundaries. It's about choosing intentional discomfort. When you stop the leak of cheap dopamine, you start to believe in yourself again. You realize that you can keep your promises. A real detox is not about breaking the brain, it's about cleaning the house. It's about removing the noise so you can hear the signal. The most difficult part isn't the first day, it's the third or fourth day when the silence kicks in. You won't feel enlightened yet, you will feel empty. Life will seem dull. As Dr. Anna Lemke explains in Dopamine Nation, when we stop the high-stimulus input, the brain needs time to recalibrate. This void is where most people quit. They mistake the silence for depression and run back to the screen. But that void is actually the sound of your brain healing. It is the space where your true self begins to reappear. Viktor Frankl suggested that we don't die from suffering, but from a lack of meaning. The emptiness of a detox is the prerequisite for new meaning. Once the trash is cleared, you must build a new system. Successful people aren't fueled by more dopamine than you, they just get it from better sources. They get it from the click of a problem solved, the burn of a muscle pushed, and the peace of a task completed. They protect their mornings like sacred ground. Tim Cook doesn't start his day by reacting to the world, he starts it by thinking and preparing. In a world that is screaming for your attention, living slow is a superpower. It is a declaration of independence. It means you choose when to react and when to remain still. As Charlie Munger said, patience is a competitive advantage. When everyone else is rushing for the next hit, the person who can sit in a room alone for an hour is the one who will eventually own the world. A clean brain allows you to love the process again. It allows you to love the hard and the slow. You might not move as fast as the digital noise around you, but you will be moving with intent. You will no longer be a ghost in your own life. You will be the architect.